Hello, everyone. It's me, Shane, and welcome back to another episode of, I guess I'm calling it Real Talk. Originally called it Dive Into the Mind. Calling it Real Talk because I think it probably is more relatable. Uh, but if I need to change it back, I'll change it back. So, anyways, we're on episode 2, I think. Today we're going to be talking about differences in uh, brain state and body state, and it's gonna be actually pretty simple because I'm gonna relate it 100% to sleep patterns again and waking up patterns. Number one, woke up. I guess it's yesterday now. Uh, Feeling awesome. Just I woke up. I was comfortable. I got an excellent night's sleep, and I didn't want to get out of bed because I was so comfortable. I think this happens for a lot of people, and I did. I actually stayed there for a while. I was content, and it was a feeling that I hadn't had in a long time. Um, let's To elaborate more though. So I guess the night before, I slept very poorly. I slept like 2 or 3 hours, and I was really tired. Um, that or the I guess the night afterwards, and I was sitting here in my chair. I was thinking, and I was just falling asleep. I was literally falling asleep in this chair, and I was like, all right, I just gotta go to bed. Went to bed, woke up like 9 hours later, and I felt great. It was honestly one of the few times in a long time that I feel like I've finally been um, comfortable. Finally been, comfortable waking up. That I was fine. It was a unfamiliar feeling, but it felt good. It felt really good, and I took advantage of it. Honestly, I stayed in bed and just for a little while. I took as much time as I could, though, essentially. But this is very dissimilar from other, I guess, states of mind or states of body, whatever you want to call it, that I've also experienced. Some as recently as this morning, and others not quite so recently, but I want to explain all three of them. So today, I woke up with a bit of anxiety. And I know anxiety is kind of a weird one. To me, I experience anxiety as a kind of a clutching in my chest. It's a pressure, and that pressure can really decide a lot of what I do or what we do as people, and it can also force us. Um, it can force us to do things that we don't want to, but it can also be kind of a paralyzation, right? Um, where we can't do anything when we have it. For example, I mean, you can equate this kind of to stage fright, right? Where you're up in front of a bunch of people, and you're just so anxious, you're so nervous, and you just clam up, you just can't speak, your mouth won't open. Um, the words won't come out. Maybe you start to forget things that you've been practicing. Uh, that it's that sort of feeling. I would say that I had that sort of feeling. Maybe not to the extreme degree where it was a paralyzing feeling, but it was definitely still there. Still there. It's a very familiar feeling to me. It's something that I feel all the time, and it's not a comfortable feeling. Not at all. It's awful, and I know that a lot of people experience it to varying degrees, but I don't wish that feeling or that experience on anyone. Um, so I woke up with that, and I don't know. I guess when I'm feeling that way, it really depends on what I do with it or what I do next, as far as like how I deal with it. it Unfortunately, usually it's tied to very specific feelings, and I have to deal with those feelings in order to get over the anxiety, or I just have to wait and hopefully it passes or deal with it in some other way. Constructively dealing with anxiety. Usually I feel very restless. Like, gosh, I have to do something. Like, I hate feeling this way. I have to do something about it. Sometimes I'll, try to fix it immediately. And that can have varying degrees of success, depending on what it is. If you can fix it immediately, and if you think you can fix it in a constructive way, then by all means, more power to you. I'm probably envious of you. But I'll usually kind of throw the energy, that anxious energy, into something else, like, exercise, other sorts of coping mechanisms that I have. Music is a very good example of that. So those are the things I do to deal with the anxiety. I feel better now. But it'll probably resurface at some point until I actually deal with it for real, or I don't know. I just kind of get used to it. It's I'm not too sure, to be completely honest. I talk about all these things. I'm certainly no expert on facets of the mind, on psychology. I'm just a normal person that experiences the human condition just like everybody else. But the last thing I wanted to talk about was depression. And depression is also an interesting one because I feel like a lot of people experience depression differently, and it affects everybody differently as well. Even just on an individual basis, I've had depression affect me in several different ways, including loss of sleep and oversleep. Just sleeping too much. Loss of appetite, and just kind of the whole plethora of different kind of depression symptoms, I suppose. But I guess we're talking about the waking up cycle, right? At least that's the focus of this video. I wake up and I'm coming off of a depressive episode, or if I'm still in a depressive episode, I always love trying to relate to other people and the way that they can visualize the feelings that they have, right? Where they can describe to me almost in a material way, in a physical way, how they're feeling emotionally or psychologically. I know feelings in the brain could definitely be two different things. They can be quite different. But the best that someone can do to almost rationalize it, that to me is so fascinating and is so just meaningful to me. That's huge. And I can always relate more and understand better what they're going through if they can kind of describe it to me. And that's actually what I'm going to do just for the waking up part of depression for me sometimes. It doesn't happen all the time. I'm sure that there are other people that deal with it almost on a constant basis. For me, it's a little bit more intermittent, but here goes. So when I've woken up before, and I'm laying there in bed, but you can imagine that I'm kind of looking straight up, right? I'm looking at the ceiling. And I have blankets on me because I guess I like having blankets for the weight of it, but in this case, it feels like the blankets weigh 1,000 pounds. It feels like that the blankets are like an immovable object that I visualize this in my head. You can imagine like almost like a psychological ward, right? Or a some sort of gosh, I can't even think of the word. But where you're laying there in a bed and it's like, pure white, right? But they have this sheet on you, but each end of the sheet, or like several places on the sheet, I can imagine that these ropes are tied to them, and at the end of each of the ropes, there's just weights, and they're just weighing this sheet down, and I just can't move. And when that happened to me, I will never forget that feeling of just immovability, of just kind of helplessness, even almost. And I hope that kind of helps you visualize, you know, kind of makes sense of what, some people might be going through. I want to give one other example, and this example is from somebody I met a long time ago, dealing with, I guess dealing with depression, dealing with a lot of other things as well. But they described it to me as feeling like they were always drowning in cold water. Like a river was just constantly just flowing into them of cold water, and they were constantly submerged. Like that to me is such a vivid and meaningful like description of what this person is going through. And obviously maybe not obviously, but I've never experienced anything quite like that. But just wow, how profound some of these experiences and the way that we can relate to each other are. How these experiences are and how we can relate them to each other. Anyways, that's all I had for this one. I know it was a little bit longer of a video, but there was more to talk about. Like I said, though, I'm going to try to keep these as short as possible, but do a lot of them. And if you have any questions or have any comments, concerns, whatever, just leave something down below. I'm more than happy to kind of take topics or discuss things that other people are curious about, or other people have questions about, or just to satisfy a curiosity. I don't know. Anyways, this is Shane. Thank you so much for listening. Hope you have an excellent life. Until next time.